All right, everyone, the new GOP inception of the U.S. House of Representatives is actually making an attempt, which I think is refreshing. Generally speaking, they've obstructed more than attempted to do anything meaningful. A lot of the new proposals that are being made, one by Hawley himself, we'll get into that in a moment, is to ban TikTok nationwide, for example. A lot of these are DOA. Their new tax proposal is DOA. They're never going to have the votes to actually overhaul the income tax system in favor of a consumption tax. While it's being taken seriously enough by the Democrats that they're attempting to strawman what it suggests, and they're saying, no, it's a huge tax increase. Well, no, not really. I oppose the proposal, but it's not actually a tax increase. It would lower taxes. It's just, it wouldn't really help the people that right now have been screwed so much by Bidenomics that tax reform is meaningful for them. So I think there are better ways to handle that situation. There is, though, link in the description, one proposal that's been put forth by Josh Hawley, which really puts Nancy Pelosi, especially, and the Democrats in general, in a very tight position. And that's because this standalone bill effectively just bans stock trading for people in Congress. If you're in Congress and you vote nay, would that not necessarily be an indicator that you intend to do insider trading? And that really is what it is. When you're in Congress, especially in certain parts of Congress, you're on certain committees with regards to finance, etc., you potentially have an advantage over the general population in terms of knowing what stock movements will be. You're milling around, at least through middleman groups, with investors, with bankers, etc. You are part of the reason for the monetary policy of the United States. For you, therefore, to effectively game the system by trading stocks is unacceptable. I would tie this in with Citizens United and similar things like that in saying that anyone that votes against this, really that's shysterism, I suppose. Now, it actually has a chance of passing. In the House GOP, I would say better than even odds that this standalone bill actually manages to have enough legs to come forth for a vote. The Republicans then rubber stamp it. The Democrats largely vote against it. Although you may see some support from a surprising group of people, such as Elon Omar, AOC, the Geek Squad, the Progressives. Many of these people, their bread is not buttered by stock trading and the normal neoliberal thing. It's buttered by craptivistic slush funds. And so they don't give a shit about stock trading because they don't engage in it. If they did engage in it, they'd be primaried from the even further left and they'd lose their jobs because of the way their districts are. I expect this has a good chance of passing the House. Now, where does it go next? It goes before the Senate. The Senate is full of people who do insider trading, even more than people in the House, with the exception of people like Pelosi. Schumer's involved, McConnell's involved, etc. Now, if I'm like an old neoliberal and I've already got mine, maybe I vote for it anyway. Like if I'm Chuck Schumer, I'm like, fuck it. I'm like 80,000 years old. Who cares? It probably dies in the Senate, though. And it'll be very interesting for the Democrats, who will be the ones mainly voting against it. The neolibs in both chambers will. Again, you wait and see what like Sanders or maybe even Warren would do in the Senate. It might get stopped, or at the very least, the bulk of people voting against it would be Democratic Party members. The Pelosi Act is effectively fisting Nancy Pelosi sideways. It's literally named for her for a reason, because Nancy Pelosi has repeatedly suggested that it's fine for members of Congress to effectively skirt the law by using their access to potentially, in some cases, even classified material that would lead them to make stock purchases or stock sales that the general population would be absolutely illegal for those individuals to have access to that information and then predicate their moves based upon it. Members of Congress should not involve themselves with this. This is one of the suggestions in which the MAGA crowd and like the progressive left actually overlap. The old neocon, neolib sorts might not even be able to stand in the way. And then it goes before Joe Biden. Would Joe Biden sign such an act? Actually, in his case, I think he probably would just sigh and surrender to the will of the populists and to the left. We may actually see insider stock trading banned for members of Congress. Now, this, of course, is a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. Let's be entirely clear. Strategically, it's good. On paper, the idea is good. It's definitely ethical. I support it completely. They should vote it through Congress. What's the problem? They would just use middlemen. They would use third parties. They would communicate privately, non-electronically, of course, unless they're crazy, with third parties to make the trades for them. They're effectively paying a cut to a middleman in order to make the same stock trades. But it slightly reduces their massive amount of illegal or at least unethical income. It inconveniences them a little, and it creates jobs because all of those middlemen will have to be hired. So you'll have thousands of middlemen within the stock system that now have decent jobs because members of Congress want to grift off of their own legal capabilities. It'll be a job creator. Thank you, Josh Hawley. You just created 5,000 jobs because Congress is corrupt. That would basically be what happens. Just to be clear, I'm not joking. I'm not being hyperbolic. So yes, I support this. It's really a smackdown of Nancy Pelosi. It's not surprising that you're seeing something like this. Now I'd like to see them seriously consider Citizens United, but I have a feeling that the GOP would lock, stock, and barrel vote that down as well. What they're going to try to do with bills that are good in intent, like this, what they usually try to do is bind them with poison pill bills to make sure that they can refocus the debate over the bill over some component that the people wouldn't largely support. The vast majority of the U.S. public does not want Congress doing insider trading. Normally, you would therefore bundle it with a tax increase, a new regulation, or something at the House or Senate level in order to make sure that it fails. You simply bungle the bill up and bundle the bill up, and then it never goes anywhere. But these bills that are being suggested right now were guaranteed one-offs. So congrats to Josh Hawley. You've just smeared poo all over Nancy Pelosi's dying career, which is good. Of course, Nancy doesn't have to pay back the tens of millions she's already goddamn made through this. It was like, didn't her husband sell off a bunch of shares in some electronics company right around the time that Nancy Pelosi and others in the House were considering regulatory steps towards that very industry? Yeah, that was a big coincidence, and they'll do it through their spouses too. Of course, they have immunity from having to testify against each other too, so it's very helpful if you're in Congress to have a spouse. Probably a bad idea to be single if you're going to be in the U.S. government, because then you might have a problem. The middleman may have to testify against you. Of course, Joe Biden preferred to use his inbred son, but that's an entirely different story, and this doesn't unfortunately affect the chief executive. Just to be clear. That's about all. Peace out.